Imagine stuffing 500 live birds inside the body of a dead seal, then burying it underground and waiting 18 months to eat it? Sounds like something out of a horror movie, right? But this is real. This is what some people in Greenland actually do and have done for centuries. It's called Kiviak, and it consistently ranks among the most disgusting foods in the world. But here's what shocked me when I actually dug into this story. The people who eat it don't just tolerate it, they celebrate it. They save it for their most important family gatherings, weddings, birthdays, the longest night of the year. So the real question isn't how can anyone eat this? The real question is why? Stay with me, because what I'm about to reveal will completely change how you see extreme food traditions, survival, and what it actually means to belong to a culture. Let's start where this story actually begins, not with birds or seals, but with darkness. Greenland sits at the top of the world. During winter, the sun disappears for months at a time. Temperatures drop to -40 degrees. The sea freezes solid. And for most of human history, there were no grocery stores, no imported food, no refrigerators. There was just the land, the ice, and whatever you could catch before winter swallowed everything. Now think about that for a second. If your entire community needed to survive 6 months of brutal cold, completely cut off from the rest of the world, what would you do with the food you had? You'd find a way to preserve it. Not with fancy technology, not with electricity, with whatever nature gave you. And in Greenland, nature gave them something incredible, the Greenlandic Seal. A hooded seal or ringed seal can weigh anywhere from 80 to 300 pounds. Its thick layer of blubber acts as a natural preservative, creating an oxygen-deprived, acidic environment inside the body cavity. That might not sound like much, but it's actually a sophisticated fermentation chamber, and that's the key to understanding Kiviak. Here's how it actually works, and I promise it's even more extreme than the description. When summer arrives in Greenland, specifically late July and early August, hundreds of thousands of little auks, a small seabird about the size of your fist, migrate to the rocky cliffs along Greenland's northwestern coast. The Inuit hunters catch them using a special long-handled net called a kakisak. They don't shoot them, they scoop them out of the sky mid-flight, sometimes catching dozens in a single swoop. Now here's where it gets completely wild. The birds are not cleaned, they are not gutted, they are not plucked. They go in whole, feathers, organs, bones, beak, everything. The hunters stuff them into the seal carcass one by one, packing as many as 500 birds into a single seal body. Then they squeeze out as much air as possible, sew the seal shut, rub the outside with seal fat to repel insects, and place heavy rocks on top to press out any remaining air pockets. And then they wait. 18 months, sometimes longer. That's the part that gets me every time. 18 months of fermentation buried under rocks on the permafrost? But here's something most people completely miss when they first hear about Kiviak, and this is where the food science becomes genuinely fascinating. What's happening inside that seal is not rotting in the way most Westerners imagine. It's controlled fermentation. The lactic acid bacteria from the seal's gut and blubber create an acidic environment that prevents dangerous pathogens from growing. The cold temperature of the permafrost slows the process just enough to let the flavors develop without the food becoming genuinely toxic. The birds essentially cure in their own juices, their organs liquefying slowly, their flesh transforming into something with an intense, pungent, concentrated flavor that has been compared to very aged cheese, fermented fish sauce, and blue cheese all at once. And if you're thinking that doesn't sound so bad, I want you to know the smell hits you from about 30 feet away. People who have witnessed a Kiviak opening describe it as one of the most overpowering sensory experiences of their lives. One journalist wrote that the fermented bird smell doesn't just enter your nose, it occupies your entire skull. So this naturally raises the question, who decides this is worth it? And that answer comes down to something much deeper than just food. Now, this is actually where Kiviak gets interesting in a way that goes far beyond weird foods people eat. In Greenland's Inuit culture, food has never just been about calories. Food is memory. Food is identity. Food is the living proof that your ancestors survived the impossible and passed that knowledge down to you. Kiviak specifically belongs to the Thule Inuit tradition, one of the most resilient cultures in human history. These were people who figured out how to not just survive, but thrive in one of the harshest environments on Earth long before any outside world even knew Greenland existed. Every step of making Kiviak is a piece of inherited knowledge. Which seals to use, when to catch the birds, how tight to pack them, how long to ferment, how to know when it's ready. That knowledge passed from grandparent to child across hundreds of years. So when a family opens a fermented seal at a celebration today, they're not just eating food. They're pulling up an unbroken thread that connects them to every ancestor who survived a Greenlandic winter. And that, if you really think about it, is actually beautiful. You might be wondering, does anyone outside this tradition actually eat Kiviak? A few adventurous food writers have tried it. The reactions range from surprisingly complex and intense to I had to step away and breathe through my mouth for several minutes. Andrew Zimmern, the host of Bizarre Foods, has eaten things that would make most people faint, and Kiviak genuinely challenged him. He described the flavor as extraordinarily pungent, with layers of fermented complexity unlike anything else in the world. He finished it, but he also said he needed a very long walk afterward. Now, there's something important here that connects Kiviak to a much bigger pattern, one that shows up everywhere once you know what to look for. And here's what I kept coming back to through all of this. Almost every food that gets labeled most disgusting foods in the world by outsiders follows the same exact pattern. It was invented by a community facing extreme scarcity. It required deep technical knowledge to produce safely. It became a symbol of cultural identity and survival. And then outsiders arrived, people who had never faced that specific kind of hardship, and called it disgusting. Think about Hákarl, the fermented shark of Iceland, Surströmming, the fermented herring of Sweden, century eggs in China, stinky tofu in Taiwan. Every single one of these is considered a delicacy by the people who grew up eating it. Every single one is considered horrifying by people who didn't. The difference isn't in the food. The difference is in the story you carry with it. And that's a genuinely profound thing to sit with, because it means our disgust response isn't just biological, it's deeply cultural. Research in food psychology actually confirms this. Studies show that children raised around a specific food, regardless of how extreme it seems to outsiders, develop neutral or positive associations with that food before age 7. The disgust response comes later, and it comes from social cues, not from taste. Which means the reason you find Kiviak repulsive right now is not because of what it actually tastes like. It's because no one in your life ever handed it to you at a celebration and said, "This is what our family makes." That's worth remembering the next time you judge a food culture. But wait, there's something even more surprising here that most people never talk about. Kiviak is actually disappearing. Not because people stopped loving it, but because of climate change. The permafrost that makes Kiviak safe, that cold, stable underground temperature that controls the fermentation, is warming. In some parts of northwestern Greenland, the ground temperature has risen enough that traditional fermentation timelines are becoming unreliable. Batches that would have been perfectly safe a generation ago now carry a higher risk of improper fermentation. Younger Greenlandic Inuit families face a genuinely heartbreaking choice: adapt the recipe with modern refrigeration, which changes the product entirely, or risk losing it. Some communities are experimenting with refrigerated fermentation chambers that mimic traditional permafrost conditions. It works, technically, but the elders who remember the old way describe something missing, not just in flavor, in meaning. There's something about food pulled from the actual earth, from the same frozen ground your grandfather walked on, that no refrigerator can replicate. And that brings us all the way back to where this story started. Kiviak isn't disgusting. It's a time capsule. It's 500 small birds carrying a culture's entire history inside a singly fermented seal. It's the answer that one of the world's most isolated civilizations found to the most fundamental human question: how do we keep each other alive? And the fact that it smells overwhelming is almost beside the point. So here's what I want you to walk away with from this. First, Kiviak is one of the most technically sophisticated food preservation methods ever developed by any culture, built entirely from local knowledge long before modern science. Second, our disgust toward extreme foods is cultural, not biological, and recognizing that changes how you see the entire world. And third, climate change isn't just melting ice, it's erasing centuries of living food culture, one tradition at a time. Now, I want to ask you something genuinely. If someone handed you a piece of Kiviak right now, would you try it? Or is there a line you wouldn't cross no matter how much you respect the culture behind it? Drop your answer in the comments. I read every single one, and the honest answers always surprise me. If this kind of deep dive into the real stories behind what the world eats is your thing, hit the like button and subscribe so you never miss one. The world eats in mysterious ways. We explain all of them.